Just want to tell everybody that this is a proud moment, not only for me, but for those that have served this country, and also for being a Veterans Week. There's a lot of history up here, let me tell you. I had the opportunity to talk with retired Lieutenant Colonel Jefferson. I was recruiting for, I think it was either Eastern Michigan or University of Michigan, and we sat at a table right next to each other and talked about the things that he's gone through and trying to get young men and women to just to straighten out, to do right for their education and to go to college. So the rest of these fine gentlemen, I'm sure, have a lot to say. I'm not going to take up too much time with what I have to deal with. I'd like to maybe open up with a question in terms of the definition of a Tuskegee air person. Maybe I'd like to shed some light in terms of what does that entail. I know we talk about the pilots as being the main focus, but maybe give a larger scope in terms of what was a Tuskegee air person in terms of how you gentlemen went about it.
There were 992, 94, 96 men who actually became pilots. For every one pilot, there were 10 to 15 to 30 other people. Cooks, bottle washers, truck drivers, clerks, administration, whole shebang. From 1941 to 1946, there possibly could have been 40 to 50,000 people coming into the program, spending 2 or 3 years, and getting out. So we said, for every one pilot, there are 15 to 20 or 30 other people. Anyone who was in the Army Air Corps, anyone who was black, colored, because the paperwork would say colored, Negro, colored, black, whatever, considered me Tuskegee Airmen, Tuskegee Air persons. Let's say it that way. Because we had nurses, here, documented, original Tuskegee Air persons. 25, 30,000, who knows? But they're all Tuskegee Airmen.
In addition to that, there were civilians also considered air persons. The primary program was run by civilians, black civilians. Had people running the program. They had stenographers and whatnot. But as he said, anyone that was connected with the training of the pilots was eligible to be a Tuskegee air person. My wife was just as much a Tuskegee air person as I was. She worked in the office down in Farmington.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and open up to the floor. I know there's a lot of questions to be asked, so this is your time to ask. A lot of history up here, so let's go with it. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we had white instructors on the base. They could be Tuskegee air persons too, if they chose. But didn't many of them choose to be.
Given the political climate at that time, what was, or what do you feel was the importance of President Franklin D. Roosevelt and his wife in terms of starting that whole Tuskegee experiment? What role did they play politically to kind of
The importance of Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Yes.
I think he was caught. Let's face it. Politically, the whole system was moving. Blacks were becoming more frequent in government, and the war was going on. All hell was breaking loose. Everybody's at war. And consequently, we were pressing for our freedoms more and more and more. Now, somebody said, Mrs. Roosevelt. Mrs. Roosevelt did not fly with the Tuskegee Airmen. Mrs. Roosevelt, I believe, was a member of the Roosevelt Fund. And the Roosevelt Fund sponsored children at Tuskegee Institute. students flying with Chief Anderson, a civilian pilot training. She went down to Tuskegee to look after the money. And while there, went down to Kennedy Field, 5 miles south of Tuskegee, the city of Tuskegee. While there, watching Chief Anderson instruct these young people, decided to take a ride in a Piper Cub. If you saw that first movie, the first movie with Fishburne, it showed Mrs. Roosevelt in a Stearman. A woman could not climb up and get into a Stearman. That's Hollywood. She rode in a Piper Cub where you can slide in. And there was a picture taken with Chief Anderson, Eleanor Roosevelt, and every time this picture was reproduced, you eliminated the man on the side, the man who was more important than Charles Anderson, the man at Tuskegee who ran the whole program, who hired Chief Anderson and hired all the rest of the black men who were civilians to teach us to fly in primary. G.L. Washington, the man who, most important, who ran the whole program of the private at Tuskegee Institute. Now that was in 1941, before Colonel Davis and Custis and DeBow came into the program. So things are out of whack a lot of times. But 41, 42, 43.